Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. And you know what? Guess what? There is a new pope. Yes, there is a new pope. Are you religious? I'm not, but it still gives me pleasure that things are just working, right? You know how that goes. But anyway, there is a new pope. How are my peeps doing? Welcome aboard. Let's see who we got in the house. For some reason, I don't see the Substack channel up yet, even though it seems like we're transmitting to the Substack channel just fine. But I don't see it on right now, but we'll see what happens in the future. Maybe it's just taking a while before it comes up. We'll see if it starts to come up, but I don't see it coming up quite yet. Anyway, folks, we have a great show for you today. What's on stack for the show today? Let's go ahead and point that out. Let me go ahead and put that up on the screen. We're going to talk about, vamos a comenzar ahorita mismo. MAGA called out, your condition only changes when you realize it's class warfare and not the isms. Also, biased by us, how not knowing that we don't know causes known harm. This is by our good friend El Señor Pedro Sanjorina Silva, who is going to be talking. We have a good interview that I want you guys to listen to. You're going to enjoy that interview. But anyhow, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome aboard. AVQ is number one in the house today. Welcome aboard, AVQ from Brooklyn, New York. Second, we have Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. Beautiful Yvette, followed by Patrick Magner from Houston, Texas. Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. And by the way, Yvette was from Atlanta, Georgia. We have in the house as well. Gene Geigel says, good day, PDR Posse. Gene, I think you're from Houston, Texas, right? Tell me if I'm right or wrong. Paul, let's see who else we've got in the house. Where would this country be if Ronald Reagan did not grant Rupert Murdoch instant U.S. citizen status? Then he could not have owned Fox News. And what that means then is we would not have been able to pollute the minds of many people as we have done thus far. May Wood is in the house. May Wood is in from Long Beach, California. Lee Grant from Montgomery County. Eric Hayes from Kingwood, Atascocita. Carl Cox from Georgia. Yeah, I think I don't remember the town. Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. Steigen Bergen Creek hasn't told me where they're from. Joe from Los Angeles, California. And we see what else have we got here? Eric is still obsessed over Letitia. You know what's going to happen as they continue their obsession? You know what always happens to them, right? They simply fall over and disappear. Venice, California from Joe. Venice, California. Hey, are any of you guys seeing? Let's see. There's something that I see on Substack. I want to make sure that before I put my first video on, that we kind of get an idea of what's going on with Substack. Substack's been having some issues with some people, with it freezing, etc. I want to make sure that we are transmitting just fine, but apparently no one is. Anybody out there can tell me if they've attempted Substack and been able to get on or not, or is it really just transmitting and not making itself known? Well, it looks like there may be an issue. Okay, Substack people, come on by Switch. I know. We'd like to get some sort of a democracy here as we do. Okay, I am checking. You know what's interesting? I don't see any live Substacks at all on the network. So I actually think Substack may be down. Their network may be down as I really don't see any lives at all on the network. Let's go home. I'm coming to the program in a minute, but don't want to get started prematurely without making sure. Okay, Acosta is live. Jim Acosta is live, so that seems to be working. Let's go ahead and try one more time and see if everything is connected. And then we'll just go ahead and start the program, guys. We can't sit back and wait till what. All right. I'm going to start with the interview that I had today with our good friend Pedro Silva. I think you're going to enjoy this interview, and then we'll continue with the program thereafter. Here is that interview that that you should enjoy. Welcome to Politics Done Right via Egberto Off the Record. Today, I'm honored once again to have somebody that we had on a few days ago with a new subject, a rather important subject that should give quite a bit of context. We have with us El Señor Pedro Senorina Silva. How are you doing today, my brother?
Hey, good, man. It's always good to be in your energy, so it's cool. I'm feeling good.
Well, let me tell you something. You wrote an article called Bias by Us with the subtitle, let me get it. How not knowing that we don't know causes known harm. And I think when you initially take a look at this, some people may not see what I call the gravity in such in your upbringing and reflection, my upbringing. I want to read the first few sentences of your article, and then I want to expand. I want to expand on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Your article starts this way. Pedro, go back to Mexico. Pedro, go back to Mexico. Being black and growing up in the South between Virginia and Mississippi with a name like Pedro Senorina Ramos Montero Silva brought in many unwelcome experiences in my life. One of which was the othering that happened whenever I switched schools, which happened quite a bit due to the economic insecurity that we lived in. That's how you start your article. Mm-hmm. That's what brought me in because I came from Panama. Egberto, my first name, Willie's from my Caribbean roots. And that the same experience that you went through externally in America is what I went through. My internal experience with family was a bit different. So what I want to do is I want to ask you to tell us a little bit about that experience of culture in this country, sort of being stereotyped on what folks look like.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, when I was a kid, they used to joke me and tell me, go back to Mexico. And they would say, go back to Mexico, And where I grew up in Virginia and then part-time in Mississippi, back in those days, they didn't have like a lot of racial categories. So it was either black, white, or sometimes it would say other. And I identify as black, but the system that we're in, black people, they think that their names can't be Pedro Senorina Ramos Montero Silva. And so with that kind of name, they would say, well, what are you, some kind of Mexican? That's what they would say, some kind of Mexican. And I would say, well, I'm not Mexican, I'm black. But my dad is from this country, so they used to be, colonized by Portugal. So that's why I have this name. And I knew my history. I understood why I had this name. But there was no education around that. And so black people and white people would tell me, go back to Mexico. And it didn't help that at the time, there used to be a kids magazine called Boys Life. And the main character was a burro named Pedro. There was a Mexican burro. So because of that, it made it worse because then the kids would just, kind of say, oh, you're a burro, you're a jackass, go back to Mexico. And so that was always a thing. And then because of the racial dynamics in the South, a lot of times people had, I hate that it's this way, but they have different categories, and some of those categories, was obviously black, white, and then they had colorism. So if somebody's lighter skin, they had their category. And then if you were considered a foreign person, then you were considered kind of like better than a black American. And a lot of foreign people bought into that too. And then black people also had a problem with it through our diaspora because some like when I had, every once in a while you'd meet like somebody from Dominican or something like that. And then they wouldn't want to be confused with a Black American. So they would make those distinctions, but I never would. I would always say, no, I'm Black. And so everybody had a tension around me, because if I would have said, oh, I'm other, then I think people would have had more acceptance of me. But because I kept saying I'm Black, then it made them create more tension. And then it seemed as if people were like, oh, well, if you want to be Black so bad, we're going to really make you feel the pain, you know, and environmentally and socially. And it didn't help that I also had a white stepmom that had a blonde hair and blue eyes. So I really was out of place in some instances. And that's why I have like a kind of deep awareness of the sensitivities that come with racial categories, ethnic categories, and nationality categories that people put themselves in, all trying to deal with this white supremacy adjacency and trying to kind of locate themselves on that this illusion, but they kind of base themselves on that spectrum. So that's basically where a lot of that tension is coming from and what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people look at, they look at you, they look at me, they look at, Black folks in the aggregate, and they just think monolithic, right?
Right.
I have never, I came from Panama, Central America. And yeah, you've been there, right?
Yeah.
I two experiences. One to the first college I went to, and the other to the university in Austin. At Blinn, I came there, and I remember walking at the campus and seeing a whole lot of Black cheerleaders, right? And that is the age when you want to go ahead and meet ladies, etc. And I went up there, and I had a strong accent, much stronger than I had now. And these young ladies laughed, right? I couldn't get an inch in because I was different. I looked like them, but I was different in the way I spoke. Yeah. Interestingly, the Latinas and the white girls had no problems in that they found it intriguing, right? First of all, there was this Black dude that Mexican Americans weren't used to seeing Black folks, even though there is a Black diaspora in Mexico as well, that nobody talks about. But, so it was quite interesting. So that was my introduction into America and colorism and culturism, all that sort of stuff. But the one that made the indelible impression is when I went to UT. And at UT, I joined a lot of organizations, including the Afro-American Culture Committee. And I went there, and we were listening to Martin Luther King's speeches, right? And I told them, I said, I would like to hear some stuff from Malcolm X as well. Well, they were very anti-Malcolm X. And I explained to them, like, a few things about taking control of your own life and not letting somebody cede you freedom, but freedom is something you take, not violence, something you take. And the first thing that I got was, you get out of here. You are an import. You are not one of us anyway. And it gave me the opportunity to say, let's get some history here. I think the ship stopped in Jamaica and Panama before it got to the United States. We are all from the same diaspora, just different colonizers. And, it was a point of education that I think is still needed today, because right now, as it is, you still find that there is this chasm between Latino Blacks or African Blacks and African Americans, which I think needs to be dissolved.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been in that tension all of my life, because my dad's country is now people considered a part of Africa, but it was actually islands that are off the coast quite a ways off of West Africa. But the older generation, they consider themselves Portuguese, and the younger generation consider themselves African. And so there was always this tension as well, because like my older brother who was born there, he would say, I'm African. And my older brother and older sister both grew up there till they were like 11 and 13. And so they have a different connection to the island. I've also been there, but I never lived there. But the tension of how one identifies when they come to America is also kind of interesting, because some people will warn people that are from another country, like, well, don't hang out with the black people because then you'll get black Americans because then you'll get treated like them, and so they'll try to avoid that because they want to just kind of make it in America, that sort of thing. But then eventually some people, it's their next generation or maybe them, they'll end up having an experience that shows like, hey, you're not white. Like whatever you think, you want to distance yourself from black Americans, you're still not white, and so that's an issue. But I'll tell you how silly, it was back in my day was because I had a white stepmom, as I told you, I was never around her that much, but sometimes people saw me with her. And one day my principal calls me to the office, me and my girlfriend at the time. And I was like, why they call us to the office? Like, what did we do? And they were like, well, we have this form here that we need you to fill out. And we want to know how to identify you. And I was like, what do you mean? And then he said, well, the form only has black or white. So I wanted to know what I should put down for you. And I was like, I started laughing. I said, what do you mean, man? And my girlfriend, she was half Korean and half black. And I said, what do you think that you should put down for me? And then he was like, black? Like he said like that. I'm like, of course. Like, what in the world, man? What are you thinking? And then he was just like, I'm not sure, because there was so little understanding. And he didn't know if my stepmom was my real mom. And he knew my dad was from another country. So he was like, I don't know what to put this guy in, but clearly I'm black. But it's like, but their brains are like so unaccustomed to that kind of nuance in identities. I mean, it's way better now in the sense that there's a bunch of categories that people can put this on. Not way better mentally, but there's a bunch of categories. But at the time, it was black, white, or other. And sometimes it was just black or white on forms.
I mean, it is so sad because, I mean, the fact I got a call into my show 2 days ago where this young lady called in. She's from Nigeria and she was moving here when she was, I guess, 8, 9, or 10, somewhere around there. And when they were filling out the immigration forms, she had to put her race, and the guy said, "Are you black, white, or whatever they're asking her?" And this girl from Nigeria, a black girl, just didn't understand what skin color had to do with them entering the country. What that kind of categorization really, it is a silly thing that folks don't understand, was really made to divide people, specifically after the Bacon
rebellion,
right? Because it is a silly thing. But there's something that you mentioned that I think that should be explored as well. How often foreign blacks are used as a buffer, as a manner to create a chasm between African Americans and blacks from outside the country, simply to have more discrimination against the black Americans by saying, but look, Pedro is here.
Right.
Look, Hector is here.
Right.
And it has actually created a friction between the black community, whatever there is in the black community proper, right?
Right.
Because it is like, well, you think you are better, or they treat you better, or whatever. And too often, Caribbean blacks, Latino blacks, African blacks allow themselves to be used in that manner at the expense of our African American brothers and sisters, when the fact is that the African American brothers or sisters were the leaders in getting the revolution in America and elsewhere. So when I hear those things on TikTok, I always put myself in there and first of all, give great regards to my African American brothers and sisters, because many a times I say, thank you. If you all didn't put the fight up, I would not be here in America.
Exactly. And that's true for everybody. And even like my dad and I had a lot of tension about that, because even though my dad was, in skin color brown, his dad could pass for white, but his mom was like African. And so he was like a Trevor Noah, and his driver's license said white, even though my dad's driver's license said white, because when in Mississippi, when he moved there, it was black or white.
Okay,
and if you were from certain countries, they put you in white category. And because Cape Verde belonged to Portugal, my dad was under Portuguese. So then it automatically meant white.
White, yeah.
Even though my dad didn't look white at all. And and when I was filling out my driver's license, I saw my dad looking over my shoulder and I put black. And he was like, I knew you were going to put that. And I was like, well, what do you think I'm going to put? And he said, well, mine says white. And I said, well, first of all, you're not white. And second of all, I sure as heck am not white. And then he said, but he tried to like make an excuse for it, you know? And then I said, okay, Dad, the next time a police officer looks at me and says, hey, I bet that guy's dad's driver's license says white. And I was like, then I'll put it on my driver's license. I said, but I think instead he's going to call me, blank word, you know?
Right.
And then my dad was like, oh, you're stupid. You playing games all the time. But it was like, he had kind of bought into that idea because he wanted to just kind of, succeed in America.
And it is amazing because do you blame somebody who wants to succeed and they take advantage of whatever they can? I mean, everybody does it, right? Whether you do it from a racial standpoint, a religious standpoint, or otherwise, in the society as an aggregate, I can understand one doing it, right? I wouldn't do it, but I can understand those who choose to do it, right?
Right.
But when they're within a community or whatever, let that be for technical reasons, not for your actual living reasons, right? I mean, if I had somebody that said, well, I went ahead and passed because I wanted to get XYZ job, make more money, etc., fine. But then when you come into the communities or whatever community, you are who you really are. Hey, that's fine. You beat a corrupt system that uses false races to do things anyway. So you can't argue with that, right?
Yeah. Well, me, I don't know, because I I was a pastor and I was like a super Christian person for a long time. And I had this real thing inside of myself about like, I want to be, if I'm going to show up in this position, I'm like, I'm going to be 100% me and all my complexities, all my nuances. If your brain is so freaking lazy that you can't stretch it to understand who I am, then just don't be around me. Like, that's my kind of thing.
And I respect that. I honestly respect that.
Yeah.
And that is how I am, right?
Right.
But like I said, though, I give grace to those who do otherwise. And at the same time, though, know the reality and act the reality when they're out of that space.
Yeah. And there's a few people in history who have done that in service. Like they've used that ability to pass to then funnel money to the civil rights movement and different things like that. So I kind of understand the strategy behind it. If it was used in that kind of strategic way.
Right.
And at the same time, I feel like, at least at this stage in my own journey, I feel like those of us who, like, let's say, for example, with myself, and I think I mentioned it in the thing I wrote, that like, it's almost like I had a get out of black free card. Like I could have gotten out of some of the stuff that other black people dealt with in my community, but I wouldn't take the get out of black free card because I felt like if I took it, I was justifying the system that was full of crap anyway.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
no. I mean, point taken. Great point taken. Now, like I said, for me, it's a matter of giving others grace. It's something that I couldn't do. Right.
Right.
I mean, you see how I reacted to the Afro-American Culture Committee. I didn't leave the room when they told me to get out. I fought back. And I gave, and all around. I mean, when I went to Blinn College, and there's a woman who really took a motherly liking for me. A white woman who was my, I worked in the cafeteria. And while a lot of the women in the cafeteria were trying to get me to go out with their daughters and that sort of stuff, she almost clamped me down and don't do this, don't do that, trying to keep me away from. Of course, I did it anyway, but you can see the complexities in the way folks think. They give themselves permission to like you because you are, because you're not from here, and that makes them feel, after all, I'm okay because look, I'm with Pedro.
Right, exactly, and it's like there's like a lot of guilt comes up for a lot of people, like white people, especially people who have a history of being in America, about how America, like people know, like people act like they don't know. They know how America was formed and the basis that these relationships were created around. So they know it. But when they get around somebody like me or you, they get curious about us because of our names or whatever. And so ends up being an opening, and then they might get to know us a little bit, but they don't afford that same curiosity to other Black Americans. They'll just be like, okay, well, that person's name sounds like a Black person from, back in the day. My biases are up. When they hear something that makes them curious, that's why I said, like, what if the opposite of bias is wonder or curiosity. And
I love that. Let me stop you there because I want folks on Substack to go check out Pedro Senorina Silva's article, Biased by Us. How not knowing in fact, I titled our talk here by the title you give it. It's an in-depth article that I think kind of gives a lot of perspective. We're talking about it some here, but please go to Pedro's article and at the same time, go ahead and give Pedro a subscribe because these are the kinds of voices that we need to hear on Substack. There's a lot of these big names coming on to Substack over the last few months that are just bringing your standard. This is an in-depth type of thinking that we get from the brother here, El Señor Pedro Silva. Continue, Pedro, please.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I think, like, just leveraging off of the word bias, right? So a lot of people, even with the word bias, they don't like hearing the word bias because it triggers them like they should feel guilty or shame or something like that. And bias is a term that really means a preference or a prejudice for something. It could be a race, it could be whatever. But when people have biases, like you say, this is an example I should use when I was working with the Smithsonian bias exhibit. That's why I wrote this article. I was a docent for the Smithsonian bias exhibit. But people have biases, like say you're getting a massage, right? And somebody's massaging you like really tough. Some people like that. That's a bias. That's a preference. Some other people like it gently. And that's also a preference. That also falls in the category of bias. But when we look at biases only means bad person, that bias against the word bias makes us avoid learning how bias actually functions in our brains. And as I was talking about in the previous call we had, that the way the brain functions, we have our amygdala, which is our fight or flight response, which it gets fully developed before you're even born. So you have this piece of your brain that's already developed and wired for survival. You come into the world and your family and everybody tells you, this is how you survive. This is how you don't die. And you get full of that information. So somebody says, black people will kill you. This. And then they get programmed, right? Well, their prefrontal cortex takes 27 years almost to develop. So if you have your amygdala programmed with all these fear messages, which we get from all over the place, from the moment you're born, that thing's already fully functioning. So it's taking in all this data. Then the other part of your brain, another part of your brain is called the hippocampus. That's like kind of like a filing system. So if you have counter experiences to what you've been taught, like if you do things like bridging and stuff like that, you'll put in your filing system, oh, I know I was told this about, black people, let's say, but I've had experiences of other black people that doesn't match. Then your prefrontal cortex can take that data and say, evaluate it. That does your executive function. So then you can make decisions that contradict what your amygdala tries to tell you. If you don't have any of those experiences, then your prefrontal cortex is only going to use the same limited amount of information if your hippocampus doesn't have more experiences. So it's like the more experiences you have, the more books you read, the more movies you watch, the more things you do with things that are different than your own baseline, the more you're able to develop your prefrontal cortex and make better relational decisions. But many people are in these silos, so they just have the same information on repeat, so they can't expand their relational baseline. So then they only can be around people that are like the people they survived with when they were younger. And when the world is way bigger and there's a lot more relational flexibility than we get to take advantage of because we're programmed, by these biases.
That is why a lot of the work that we do is important, right? Expanding, first of all, being able to, like I tell folks, one of the reasons I work with absolutely everybody, whether you call yourself MAGA, whether you call yourself even racist, whether you call yourself whatever, I'll always work with you because, again, one of the reasons you just mentioned is when you have the experiences. And I can tell you from a flawed person that I am, I am from a country where, a homophobia type country. I am from a sexist country. And I can tell you without regards, right, without any, absolutely, that I'm no longer a sexist, that I'm no longer a homophobe, because I did just what you mentioned there. I was introduced to exposing myself to reality and how things really are. Right. And I won't lie to you. I mean, this amygdala always wants to get in when the executive gets lazy.
Yes,
But then
exactly.
when the executive part of your brain gets lazy, a word may come out and it's like, did I really say that?
Right.
But you know it's wrong. You correct yourself. And because from the heart level, you've changed. And if I can change from being a sexist, if I can change from being a homophobe, if I can bring down all those negatives that were into my amygdala because of how I was reared, because of my culture, everybody that's listening to us here, whether you're a racist that have not accepted that you're a racist, whether you're a sexist that haven't accepted you're a sexist, whether you're a homophobe that haven't accepted you're a homophobe, just look in the mirror and said, release myself. It is possible. I did.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I was raised with so many things. And like I was a fundamentalist evangelical Christian that thought everybody was going to hell except for 144,000 people, So I like, if I could come from that and then on top of everything else, the world is huge and we miss out on so much because we take these, information that we receive from people that were well-meaning, because they wanted you to survive, And one of the jokes I made in the bus exhibit is that we have a bias for survival. So if most people prefer to be alive, so they're going to look for the information that they think is going to prolong their life, and that makes us, have less capability of engaging with people who we might perceive as a threat. So if a person hears a person with an accent or speaking another language, the reason why that's a threat to them, because you could be saying in another language, I want to kill you, but they don't know that. So their brain starts tripping. One of the things I used to do, I've done a lot of goofy things when I started realizing how trapped some people are. I would sometimes go in the mall, and if I saw somebody looking at me like kind of funny, want to follow me around or something, because they didn't know my name was Pedro yet, so they still were using their normal racist biases against me, I would make up a fake sounding language just to make the person feel uncomfortable. And I would do it with my brother. I have a brother that's adopted, so he doesn't have the Portuguese background. He's a Black American, and we would go to the mall, and then somebody might look at both of us, and then I'd be like, "Oka, Oka," and I just point at the person and just do like that, and then he would go, "Oka, Oka," and then we would just keep doing it, and then the people look like, "Oh my God, what are they saying?" And I would just walk off and crack up laughing, and I would do that because I wanted people to see how silly they were. And one time in the same mall, because we used to go to this one mall, everybody hung out. One time this older white lady grabbed her purse and like she thought I was going to steal it. Well, in the mall, and I wasn't doing anything there. I looked at her, I grabbed my bag and held it the same way she was holding her purse. And then I pointed at her and screamed and said, "No, leave me alone." And then I started running. And then my brother was like, "What's going on?" And some of my friends. And then I said, "That white lady's trying to rob me. That old white lady's trying to rob me." And they were like, "Man, you are insane, bro." But I was like, you need to see how you look because you're projecting.
Yes. Yeah. I think, believe it or not, that last one that you did with the purse, that is, man, I may even do that, because I remember when I just moved to Kingwood and I'm walking through we have all these trails and I'm walking through the trail and I pass this woman and that's the same thing she did with her purse. But, I never let things go. So I turned around and I said, it's not me that you need to fear. It's the one that you need to believe you need to fear that you will need to fear. I want to write something here from Natalie Lago says, I had the same experience with my daughter in elementary school. My daughter is half Black from me, her mom, and half Danish from her dad. I refused to fill out the form. The school informed me that it would assign someone to look at her and evaluate her category. To make this matter more complicated, although my husband is Danish, his family officially changed their surname to Lago. I can see why, Natalie. Wow. And then Jane B says, yes, the African Americans were huge in the revolution, and it's disturbing that he says at others, such as the Smithsonian, are removing the history. It makes me angry. That's what Donald Trump is doing at the Smithsonian right now. They're trying to take things out. And Catherine Hill says, wow, just tuned in and very glad to hear both of you. Thank you, Catherine, for being here. Folks, please remember to share. Well, look, we're coming up on our time now, El Señor. I wanted to talk this issue, and I think we got to a bit more than I expected us to get to it, the context that you gave the article. I want to remind everybody that we're speaking to Pedro Senorina Silva about his article titled Bias by Us, subtitle, How Not Knowing That We Don't Know Causes Known Harm. Please find that article. Please read that article. And while you're there, go ahead and click on that subscribe button. He writes some great pieces that I enjoy reading, and I think you will enjoy reading as well. There are a lot of good substantive writers here on Substack. Let us be known, point it out, because again, a lot of right now we're being overtaken by a lot of the stars from mainstream media. They're doing the same thing that they do all the times. But if you want some in-depth, real-world writing, please remember to visit people like Pedro and myself. We're out there doing the work. Pedro, give me a closer.
Yeah, I would say that the greatest gift that you can experience in this life is getting to know yourself. And you can't do that if you are allowing yourself to be limited by biases that maybe were meant to make you feel safe, but they're actually keeping you from you. And when we don't know that we don't know, as I said, we create known harm. When we are not aware of the relational limitations we have, we project our limitations onto other people. And there's just so much for us to gain by allowing ourselves to experience the fullness of this life, to expand our relational and imaginative capacities and to help create a world where more people can thrive. And that's the work that I'm going towards pretty much with everything I'm doing. And whatever has to be dismantled, let it be dismantled so that we can build something better.
Pedro, Senorina Silva, it is always my honor to speak to you, and we must do this more often because, like I said, every time I speak to you, I leave a little bit smarter. Have a wonderful rest of your day, my brother.
Hey, same to you, man.
I enjoyed speaking to Pedro. I met Pedro in upstate New York. We went to a resort where we brought folks in of all cultures, races, and every environment. We brought in folks from the hood. We brought in folks from suburbia. We brought in folks from the exurb, the rural areas, and we all sat down and spoke and had great conversation. When he talks about the amygdala, etc., to sort of break that cycle. Let's see. Paul Fleming says, reporter, you just announced a new nominee for U.S. Surgeon General who never finished her residency and who and is not a practicing physician. So can you explain why you picked her to be America's top doctor, Trump? Because Bobby thought she was fantastic. I don't know her. Aren't these the same people who've been talking about DEI? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Did I say that for there to be meritocracy, excellence, and intelligence, you did need DEI to increase your pool, diversity, equity, and inclusiveness, so that you could get the best? But of course, a president who assigned Hegseth as our defense secretary, a guy who assigned Kennedy as leader of our, our, what is it, the health department, Donald Trump proves that his biggest mistake was to get rid of DEI because it made the pool that much smaller so that he was populated or got populated with incompetence. Wow. Paul, I didn't even know that he already nominated a replacement for the Surgeon General. If you have a link to that phrase, that would be nice because I think that would make a great meme. Why did you nominate somebody that is not competent? Why did you nominate somebody that doesn't have the qualifications? Oh, they were a non-DEI hire. They were a non-DEI hire, which meant they could not be MEI, meritorious, excellent, and intelligent. Huh. Doesn't that sound like Donald Trump? Doesn't that sound like Donald Trump? Anyway, let's see what else I got here to read. I think I saw something from Brother Radnin also, who said the following. Bear with me a second. Para ver. Oh, Paul Fleming says, no, I got that already. Oh, I can't wait until Universal Translator come online. That first version of which are already coming around. Yeah, I saw the earpiece. I've never used it. I wonder how efficient they are if they really do it in real time. One of these days I may buy them because buy one. They're kind of cheap now, so it's probably worth a try. All right, I have another video here. This was a conversation since we just went over biases and race, etc. I'm going to play this piece from a friend of the show that called in the morning, and let you hear what she had to say about MAGA and what they really should be concerned about. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side. Let's go right now. After one of our callers this morning, a MAGA caller, got rather racial, we got another caller in that gave a lot of perspective. And what I want you to do is listen to what she has to say, both about class warfare, prejudice, racism, and flooding the zone. It's so important. She encapsulated it in one narrative, and I think she did a good job. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. Let's go to Uju. Uju, thank you, Uju. How are you doing, my sister?
Hi, I'm here. My Substack is acting up, so I have no idea, but I listen to you on YouTube. I'm going to represent all the women out there. I'll do my very best. Okay. I was just listening to the other caller, and I knew he was going to say it's because she's Black. I really want people to just get to it. Stop. Life is too short. Let's just get to it. A European writer recently said that the minute America realizes that the minute America gets over its racial social construct, Americans, the vast majority of Americans are going to realize that it was always a class warfare.
Amen.
It always has been. If you really think about it, race is a social construct that was started by the haves when they realized there were a lot more have-nots than they were, and they needed to give people an opportunity, the ability to feel more superior to other people. It's the reason why I believe MLK was assassinated. It's the reason why a lot of civil rights leaders or just people who were onto something as far as making sure that poor white people realize that at the end of the day, your bank account still says $5, just like my bank account says. Mm-hmm. And we're the same. I'm Black in quotation and you're white. So it doesn't really matter if I'm Black or white. You're still starving. You're really still starving. You're trying to feed your kids. You're trying to do the best that you can. So anyway, So we literally as Americans have to understand we are Americans. And until we realize that our bank accounts have pretty much for the most part, not $1 billion or $1 million, we're going to continue to have the same circular discussion over and over again. And one last thing, as far as flooding the zone, I was just telling my husband last night, we also have to be very, very intentional about understanding in a given day, they're going to throw 11 trash at you. One of those items that they throw at you is what you should pay attention to, okay? In addition to that, the other 15 items that they're not throwing at you is what you should also be paying attention to. So Jon Stewart did this funny thing on Daily Show where he had a chart. They're going to throw a lot at you, okay? And it's going to be so hard to not, react to it. Alcatraz, and I literally said, maybe he was streaming Alcatraz, and he confirmed it. It's silly. But don't get distracted. Don't get distracted. That's what I'm saying. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you. That's why I wanted to hear from you. Thank you so kindly with your words, Uju. So yeah, Uju nailed it. And once we realize that we are in the same boat, once we realize that we have to fight this autocratic president, that we have to fight this economic system, because both of them together are simply decimating our personal economies. Once we do that, we can actually make progress because we start having the wherewithal to elect those who are really going to be working for us. Right now, we don't have that. Right now, we continue to allow our confusion. We continue to allow our willful ignorance to have us make the wrong choices based on our prejudices. Imagine if we realize who the enemy really is. That will solve 90% of our problems.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please.
And that is absolutely true. A progressive message, when you query Americans and you give them the progressive message, the things that the policies that we stand for, the taxation that we stand for, most Americans support what we are advocating. But again, it's the messaging and the misinformation that's doing it. And that's why we do politics done right. We do politics done right, and we place it everywhere so that we can clear up all this misinformation, etc. The other subject that I want to cover, and let me put it on the screen here real quickly, is the Trump trade deal with the UK is just another ripoff. Welcome aboard. Bruce Pollard said he's finally here. Bruce from Kingwood, Texas. But I want to read something that Rudnin said. Trump's circle loves to appoint insiders with a loyalty bias, not caring about qualifications. It's not DEI or MEI, it's nepotism. Yes, it is. And he says as well, if you're starving, who do you blame? It's not the poor black and brown person who is the same boat as you. It is the wealthy who control the levers of power in corporations and government that have stacked the deck against people like you and those minorities you have been told to hate. Again, the Bacon Rebellion is where the wealthy class really woke up and said, oops, we got to create that permanent split between folks. And it's what we said we are not going to allow. We're going to bring folks together by hook or crook. Anyway, the US President Donald Trump on Thursday unveiled the framework of a trade deal with the United Kingdom and was extremely light on details despite being billed as a full and comprehensive agreement. Get ready. Donald Trump is getting ready to cave. He's going to have no agreements and he's going to say, we came to an agreement. Here's the deal. Even in this agreement that he signed, guess what the tariffs remains with Great Britain? 10%. In other words, more than it was when he came into office. Okay? He exempted a few things like aluminum and car parts, etc. But you know what that means? The average American who's buying stuff, they are from England, whatever. The small businesses that are importing specialty products, they are going to pay the tariff. And why are they paying this tariff? Because Donald Trump wants to give folks a big tax cut. Welcome aboard, Adolf Twitler. The same deal. How you doing, Adolf Twitler? Great to have you here. All right. The other subject I want to cover is important. The corruption is staggering. Donald Trump, as he's going nation to nation, they're trying to entice countries, and this is what we call the big grift here. They're trying to entice countries to use what again? Starlink, to give EMAS Starlink link access. This little country, Lesotho, in that South Africa surrounds, was pretty much forced to sign a deal with Starlink. What we are seeing here is the heights of corruption. Yesterday, Elizabeth Warren did a piece on MSNBC that showed the corruption of the Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, but the coins that we're talking about, the Trump coin, the Trump theme coin, as well as some other coins that he's gotten folks to invest $2 billion in. When we tell you that this guy is selling the White House, we are not just talking hyperbole here. We're actually talking evidentiary stuff that one can actually find as the absolute truth. So, folks, look, man, understand where we are, understand what's going on, Chuck Pinaccia just sent me a text. He says, first American Pope ever, long shot until you consider who is in the White House and how the new Pope could be an important antidote to fascist Trump. This was a quick political decision by the Cardinals, in my opinion. Third or fourth ballot, right? Thoughts? Let me tell you, you nailed it. That's when they said American Pope. And it's not only that it's an American Pope, Chuck Pinacchio. It's not only that it's an American Pope. And I don't know if you're watching the show right now, so let me just say, let him know you are right. You are right. Chuck, if you are in the chat or on one of these things, let me know, or even give me a call, 281-823-7747, 281-823-7747. But Chuck Pinacchio is actually right. This was a political decision because it had to be the right American cardinal as well. In other words, it couldn't be Dolan from New York. Dolan is just one of those fall cardinals, right? Evil guy. He just don't care about anybody. But when we're talking about somebody like Leo the 14th, whose name was Lespold, whatever his name was, that was a wonderful choice. And yes, he believes in social programs. He believes in immigration. He believes in all these things that's anathema to Republican Party, MAGA, and Donald Trump. In other words, he's humane. He cares about humanity. He's not. He actually lives. He actually lives what Jesus preaches. Unlike MAGA, Trump, and the current GOP, they are not for Christians. They are real. I repeat, real Christians who believe in aiding the foreigner, who believe in aiding the sick, who believe in feeding the hungry. Not just feeding the hungry if they have $1, not just healing the sick if they have $1 million. So let's get it right. The pick, I believe, also was political, and it was to pretty much try to get America in order, because now America is going to be looking at, well, we sent a pope, a person of goodness out. How can we have a moronic criminal who runs America, right? So yeah, I think it was political, absolutely so. All right, before I go, however, I want to warn everybody. Every single time, let's go to Ray. Brother Ray Brackens, how you doing?
I'm good this afternoon, brother. I actually did see that news about the new pope being elected. I'm not particularly religious, but my roots being from New Orleans, and of course my football team being named the Saints, I feel like I have to weigh in on it. So I actually believe that it's a good thing that he's from America, because they say that's not traditional. It's usually someone from Italy. I heard that he actually takes a lot of his cues from a value perspective from Pope Francis, who I heard even Bill Maher spoke highly of Pope Francis, and that was saying a lot, because Bill Maher made a whole movie called Religious. So
right,
but I mean, I'm on that same spectrum. I respect him as a leader of the religion, not my particular leader, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring. And I even joke with my friend from New Orleans. I say, maybe he can meet Trump and exercise that demon, Maybe, I don't know, but for all intents and purposes, which you thought that was funny.
Oh, that was funny. And
but
you know
for
what,
all
though?
intents and purposes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for all intents and purposes, I think it's going to be a good, a positive symbol for Americans right now, who maybe feel like we're going into the crapper, if you know what I mean. But your thoughts, please.
No, well, I think you're absolutely right. I think what having an American Pope has just given us a tad bit of morality, because first of all, We lost all our morality with Donald Trump. We've already lost quite a bit of our morality with Biden and every single US president that have allowed genocide, and not only in Israel but around the world, for people that they don't really think have much human, that they don't concern human enough. So America continue to have that sin where we have allowed genocides not only in the not only in Israel, but in Gaza, but we've allowed genocide in different areas in Africa, in different areas of Asia, etc., and done nothing about it. I think having a leader that has a moral compass that is from the United States, it's almost like well, we don't have to look at the United States completely as a lost moral cause anymore. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I say, it's only a positive. Like I say, I haven't watched much positive news, but I just turned on TV and saw that news and said, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's something good for a change.
Oh yeah,
and I mean,
it was good.
I
It
feel
was
like
good. It was good because again, like I said, I watched it. I watched when he was, and I felt a certain. I mean, I'm not. I was born a Catholic, became a Baptist, went into Maranatha, and then became a humanist. And I felt, believe it or not, as they said, the Pope was American, and he spoke, and I found out. I did a quick Google search on who he was. A peace came over me, and a level of pride came over me that an American Pope with his values was getting installed in Rome. I mean, again, like I said, I'm a humanist. There's nothing. I'm not a religious person, but I felt a sense of pride, and that he could do something with. I mean, it's just imagery, right? But something about our values. Hey, it's 4:01. I got to go, my friend. Finish up real quick for me.
I have nothing else, man. I'm gonna just say we all gotta pray if we do have a religious leader. But for you as a humanist, do what you do, man, and keep the hope alive. That's what I say. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Anyway, folks, we're at the end of the show. Again, we're going to have everything out in a little bit, the rest of the show in a little bit. But please, for those of you who like what we do, who understand the reason for what we do, we ask you that you support the program. And how can you support the program? You can support the program by becoming a paid subscriber of our newsletter. How do you do that? Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, and become a paid subscriber. You'll be subsidizing all of what we do. We don't only do our 2 programs every day. We also do interviews. We write a lot of articles, not only on our Substack, but at Daily Kos, Op-Ed News, and many other places to push the progressive message. Again, they have billions to promote their fallacies. We do it on the cheap. So please support us however you can. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I'm going to put it inside of the Substack as well. That is it, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. And we can get this done. We are making a difference. Yvette Everett says, great interview and show. Thank you so kindly, Yvette. Coming from you, that means everything. I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.